Remember, under an open listing, the seller could sign listings with an unlimited number of brokers. An exclusive agency listing is similar to an open listing since the seller may still market the property themselves. If the seller procures the buyer, the seller does not owe commission to the listing broker. Again, if this type of listing were allowed to be marketed on a multiple listing service, it would be problematic. The broker may be advertising the property for one price on the MLS, while the seller is marketing the property for another price through their own marketing efforts. You can see again how a broker may not be motivated to aggressively market a property if they may lose the opportunity for commission if the seller were able to find their own buyer. Exclusive right to sell listing. For residential real estate, the exclusive right to sell listing is probably the most popular type of listing because it is the only type of listing most MLS organizations will allow to be advertised through their listing services. Later, we will refer to this type of an agreement as an exclusive brokerage agreement. Under an exclusive right to sell listing, the seller agrees to pay the listing broker when a ready, willing, and able buyer is found, regardless of who finds the buyer. The seller also agrees that the broker will be the sole representative of the seller. When the listing broker of an exclusive right to sell listing advertises the listing on the MLS service, the broker agrees to cooperate with any other brokers who are members of the MLS in finding a buyer for the listing. If another MLS broker finds a buyer, the listing broker agrees to compensate the buyer procuring broker from the commission the listing broker is receiving under the listing agreement. What happens if the seller finds a buyer? Under the exclusive right to sell listing, the listing broker is still entitled to receive compensation on the transaction. Remember, the listing agreement states the broker earns a commission when a buyer is found, regardless of who finds the buyer. You can see how this type of listing provides the strongest guarantee of commission for the broker, and therefore likely the strongest incentive to aggressively market the listed property. Sellers benefit from the dedication and commitment to their property on the part of the listing broker. Similarly, this type of agreement would be preferred by brokers representing buyers. As you can see, an exclusive brokerage agreement has certain advantages to the real estate brokerage over other types of agreements. This is why the exclusive brokerage type of agreement is the most commonly used in the real estate industry by real estate brokers. The Utah legislature defined an exclusive brokerage agreement and set forth agency requirements associated with this type of agreement. The statute defines an exclusive brokerage agreement as a written agreement between a client and a principal broker which meets the requirements we will discuss. First, the agreement must be for representation to list for sale, lease, or exchange real property, an option real property, or an improvement on real property. Also representation to purchase real property, an option on real property, or an improvement on real property. In simple terms, the agreement is between a client and a real estate broker, where the broker represents the client in a real estate transaction. The agreement must give the real estate broker the sole right to represent the client. The client does not have the option of having another real estate broker represent them. If they do have another real estate broker represent them, they run the risk of being obligated to pay commissions to both brokers. The third requirement of an exclusive brokerage agreement under the statute deals with compensation. The agreement must give the broker the expectation of receiving compensation or compensation in exchange for the representation offered by the broker. The statute then proceeds to define specific services the broker must render on behalf of the client if the broker and the client have signed an exclusive brokerage agreement. The following slides review the obligation a broker and any agents involved in the transaction have under an exclusive brokerage agreement. These minimum service requirements do not apply once a contract is signed, all the contingencies in the contract are satisfied or waived, and the transaction is closed. The obligations obviously would not apply after the exclusive brokerage agreement expires.